DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans, time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking to the ball. 'Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Good evening, everyone, and how are you tonight? And thank you for tuning into the post-game wrap-up show here at DolphinsTalk.com. I am your host this evening, Tom Ernest, and with me tonight is my brother from a completely different mother, Josh Katzker from the same old Dolphin show here at DolphinsTalk.com. Josh, welcome to the post-game show. How are you doing tonight?
Thank you for having me. I'm sliding into this nice little there's like a nice little divot in the chair here where Mike usually sits, but he's on assignment today in South Florida. So because of that, I get to slide in and I get to keep the seat warm for him here for a little bit tonight. So very happy to be here and happy that, hey, we get to talk about the Dolphins winning a game, which is nice.
Always good to beat. And I love you and Aaron when you guys talk Jets week. Your song always gets me fired up when we're ready to talk about the stinking Jets. But happy that they were able to pull off the victory. We're going to talk about that on the post-game wrap-up show. Before we get into any of that, a quick word from our sponsor.
The DolphinsTalk.com podcast network is sponsored by Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, Miami Heat, the Hurricanes, Florida Panthers, and all of the professional and college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey, a birthday gift, or the newest hat to hit the market of your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive, Davie, Florida, Caneswear has it all. Not in South Florida? No worries. Visit Caneswear.com to shop their inventory from the comfort of your home, and they'll ship it to you. International fans, too. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com. Caneswear.com.
All right, let's get into it. Josh, we're going to open it up. The floor is yours. The Dolphins defeat the Jets in overtime 32-26. Let's start with your initial takeaways from the Dolphins victory.
Well, I think if you're going to talk about this game, you want to talk about the takeaways. The first thing you got to do is start with the fact that they won the game. They won a game that for a while there in the second half, particularly in that third quarter, was really starting to look like maybe they're going to lose this game. Maybe they are going to go ahead and do the most embarrassing thing possible, which is lose at home to the New York Jets. But ultimately, they did enough. They were helped by some pretty poor game management by the Jets, I think, if we're being honest, on what turned out to be their final drive of the game. But regardless, they did what they needed to do, and they came away with the victory. So from that perspective, that's a good thing. I guess the other side of the coin for me is there's been a lot of talk over the past couple of weeks now about how the Dolphins want to bust narratives, right? They want to turn some narratives on their head, and they went into that game against the Packers and they just basically played into all of the narratives that exist. And I think, to me, they did the exact same thing today. While they did end up winning the game, there was nothing about this game from a Miami Dolphins standpoint that made me any more of a believer that this is a team that is going to be able to make the playoffs or go on any kind of run should they make it into the playoffs. To me, I watched this game and I saw what is basically the same old Dolphins from a lot of perspectives. And I'm sure we'll get into it as the show goes on, but This was not a terribly encouraging performance from the Miami Dolphins, aside from the fact that, like I said at the beginning, they won the game. And ultimately, if you're looking specifically at this season, the 2024 Miami Dolphins, and keeping those chances alive to keep playing football for as long as possible, they got the win, and that keeps that door open.
Yeah, I agree with you. The win is what is most important, but yes, we got to look at the takeaways from this game. The number one thing for me, and again, we're going to talk about this throughout the entire show, but first takeaway is, where is the Anthony Weaver defense that we saw for better part of like 8 or 9 weeks of the season, where they were playing absolutely lights out, especially while Tua was out. The defense kind of carried them along, kept them in games, and they're going against the 31st ranked offense today, and they could not stop a nosebleed. The Jets move the ball up and down the field at will for majority of this football game. Now, the Dolphins did get stops when it mattered, forcing that field goal, getting that sack to make it 3rd and long to really set the Jets up to only be able to kick that field goal. And I agree with you there as well when it comes to the Jets completely botching the end of that game. Why are you throwing a sideline pass? Why are you throwing a sideline pass? As a Dolphins fans, thank you. The Dolphins had no timeouts. If you threw it in the middle of the field, the clock would be down to 20 seconds roughly after the kick was made. And then that gives the Dolphins zero chance really to make any sort of momentum shifting play. Granted that, the Malik Washington return really helped the Dolphins get that field goal opportunity, but the Jets helped at the end of that football game. The other takeaway for me is we always ask Tua to take the team on his back and lead them and drag them to victory. Today, I don't care what the Jets' record is. I don't care. You want to have, you want to say, Tua, take the team and carry them on your back and drag them to victory. He did that today. There is no question he did that today. He dragged that team to victory. Do we want it in bigger spots? Absolutely, 100%. But it's one of those things. With him particularly, we ask him to do it. He's done it. I don't care where the bar is set. He did it. Let's move on from it. The Dolphins got a big win. They're back to 6-7, clinging to life for that final playoff spot. Tonight's game is the Chargers at Kansas City. That is a big game for the Dolphins, for us watching, because we need the Chiefs to win.
Yeah, I think
for multitude of reasons. But they still have to handle their business. Can the Dolphins still get into the playoffs at 9-8? Yes, but they need a lot more help. The goal is to win out.
Well, yeah, they need a lot more help, and they need to manage to win in Houston next week. And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah, we'll talk about that towards the end of the show.
I have my doubts about that.
They need to do their part. They have to win games. Today was the starting point. It took a lot. It took everything this team had to beat this lowly Jets team, but they got it done. So
yeah, and to respond to what you said, Tom, about the defense, where is this Anthony Weaver defense that we saw earlier in the season? Well, first of all, I think earlier in the season, the Dolphins were not going up against terribly strong opponents. Their opponents were not great. And then, as we've seen, ever since they played Arizona and they got lit up, they played Buffalo, they got lit up. They did have a pretty good game against the Rams, but they got lit up again in large part by the Packers in there. The other part of when they go up against the stronger defense or stronger offenses, they don't really play as well, which go figure. The other thing that I think we're also starting to see is that this is an old defense, and you have an old team, and when you have old players, they tend to wear down late in the season. And when you have older players that begin to wear down, what you need is the younger players on your defense to really step up and really shine. And when you look at that secondary, you've got Kader Kohou, who just looks completely lost out there. Jalen Ramsey had a bad day at the office today. Kader Kohou also had a bad day at the office. He just, like I said, looks completely lost. And you also have Javon Holland, who for a guy that is out here supposedly playing to try to get a big contract from the Miami Dolphins, he certainly doesn't appear to be playing like a guy who is looking to try to earn himself a big contract. And if this continues for the final 4 games of the regular season, and maybe, if we're lucky beyond that, he's going to need to really turn something around if he wants to have any chance of receiving a contract from Chris Grier to stay here in Miami, something that I have other reasons to believe isn't going to happen. But so that's, to me, in terms of the defense, that's where they've gone. And it seems to me that this was another performance from the Dolphins defense where we saw sloppiness, we saw sluggishness, and we saw players out of position making mistakes. And a lot of people will argue that the Dolphins just don't have the horses. They don't have the personnel. They don't have the players that they need. They're missing Bradley Chubb. They're missing Jalen Phillips. They're missing, Anthony Walker, whoever it is. That may be the case, but whoever is stepping into those places is making the same mistakes as the people who were there before them. And that suggests to me that Anthony Weaver is not the defensive coordinator that we all hoped he could be, at least not at this point. And maybe that changes next season when you can bring in some more players if he gets to stay. Maybe that's something that can improve next year. But thus far, I'm not terribly thrilled with the defensive play of this team overall over the course of the season, but particularly today against the Jets.
Yeah, to talk on Holland real quick, it seems like, this is just me watching at this point and just, quick reaction. I haven't sat down to even bother to look at the all-22 tape yet. But the one thing that I noticed, especially on that first touchdown for the Jets in this game, the lack of effort to try to make a tackle. He was engaged with a defender and the guy was running right by him. The offensive player didn't touch Holland, and he just turned around and watched him waltz into the end zone. Not even a strong effort in trying to tackle him. And I'll give Anthony Weaver a ton of credit. As much as his defense has been much maligned over the last few weeks, month or so, he said he called it out. He says, if you're soft, you're soft, and the tape don't lie. And today, for all intents and purposes, Holland looks soft. So, is he going to get a payday from the Dolphins? I don't think so. Is he going to get a payday somewhere else? Probably. But for whatever reason, he's making business decisions because he is on the last year of his contract. He's not playing the way that we know Javon Holland has been playing with the Miami Dolphins through the course of his first 3 seasons. All right. I think we could all agree that we're not seeing this same Javon Holland.
No, he's taken a big step back this year.
He has, and we considered, last year with Vic Fangio, as much as he didn't like playing for Vic Fangio, was arguably, I think, his best season in the NFL was last year. Mm-hmm. He was fantastic last year. I would have handed him the bag at that point, but here we are, that's a Chris Grier topic. We're not going to get into that tonight.
Yeah. I'll just throw out this to say there's a reason that Javon Holland is among the loudest people pushing back when somebody calls this team soft. And it's primarily because he is one of the biggest culprits. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're seeing it. We're seeing it over the last, few weeks. I don't think he's been playing well at all to really deserve any sort of contract from the Miami Dolphins, let alone one that's going to be in the top 5 in overall defensive back contracts, which are being handed out now to safeties. He's going to want something in the realm of Antoine Winfield Jr. He's not in the stratosphere of Antoine Winfield Jr. All right, let's get into the play-by-play. We got plenty more to talk about. Let's start with the Dolphins getting the ball first. 8-play, 70-yard drive, took 4:36 off the clock. It also drained about 5 years off my life because they get down to the 1st and goal at the 3-yard line. No gain from Davante. And then he goes for 2 yards. And then a pass interference on Tyreek Hill from DJ Reed gives the Dolphins 1st and goal from the 1, -1 yards. And then Davante Achane was able to get in for a 2-yard touchdown. And the Dolphins go up 6-0 because Jason Sanders, that point loomed large, missed the extra point. But overall on that drive, Josh, Tua was very efficient. He started pushing the ball down the field a little bit more, and you can get a sense that the offense was clicking early on in this game.
Oh yeah, as I watched that first drive, I thought this is how I expected it to go. The Jets defense was very beat up, and I expected the Dolphins offense to largely have their way with the Jets, and they certainly did on that first drive. It was just, they made it look easy, went right down the field. I still worry a little bit about this team's inability to execute in short yardage. It's really worrying, and that's one of the big, when I think about some of the big flashing neon lights that are telling me that this team is not going to be equipped to make any kind of run in the postseason, should they make it there, it's that failure to execute in short yardage, particularly on the ground, that is one of those big red flags for me. I just combined neon lights with red flags, which is a mixed metaphor, but either way, the point remains. The Dolphins struggled in short yardage, but other than that, it was a very good opening offensive drive for the Dolphins.
They needed to set the tone, and clearly they did right there. The Jets get the ball at their 30-yard line, started with a 7-yard run from Braelon Allen, who replaced the injured Breece Hall. 2nd and 3, Conklin gets a reception for 11. On 3rd and 8, Aaron Rodgers threw short to Garrett Wilson, incomplete, but a penalty on Jalen Ramsey for defensive pass interference. I thought that was very ticky-tack. It was a terrible call. But the Jets benefit from that, but the drive did stall out at the Dolphins' 10-yard line as Aaron Rodgers' pass to Ty Conklin was incomplete, and a offensive holding penalty was declined, but they settled for a 28-yard field goal from Anders. What the hell is his name? Anders Carlson. Anders Carlson makes it a 6-3 game. The Dolphins get the ball back and have a 10-play, 49-yard drive that took 5:26 off the clock, unfortunately ending in a Jason Sanders field goal attempt. The drive started with Jalen Wright with a 2-yard run, and Terron Armstead went back into the game at that point, but he shortly left after this drive ended, as we're not sure severity just yet on Armstead, but they held him out for the remainder of the game at this point. 2nd and 8, after the first run, Tyreek Hill with a reception for 13 yards and a first down. Jalen Wright for 5. Jalen Wright for 6, getting it to the Jets' 44-yard line. Tua finds Davante for 9, and then Achane goes for 5 on the ground. So a little momentum there, and then Tyreek Hill with a nice little toss sweep from Tua for a 6-yard gain. And on 3rd and 1, an incomplete pass to Tyreek Hill, and they had to settle. Josh, you brought it up. Short yardage situations are really rearing its ugly head. And the Dolphins had to settle for 3 when it looks like they could have cashed in for 6.
Yeah, I found myself surprised that they settled for the kick there. That is one of those scenarios where I figured McDaniel was going to go for it, particularly when he threw the ball on 3rd down. I said, okay, they're going to throw it here and then run it on 4th down, but they didn't. So it was a little bit of a head scratcher for me for that. I mean, a good, one of the big, points against Mike McDaniel this season and the past 3 years really has been his reluctance to just take the points sometimes. So, I mean, the fact that he just decided, okay, we're going to kick the field goal here is one thing, but it also speaks volumes to the fact that this is not a man that has a lot of faith in his team's ability to go out there and grind out a yard when they need a yard. Again, that's just one of those things that you see, and in a game like this is largely going to be by certain segments of the fan base going to get completely brushed under the rug because they've managed to win the game. But the fact is, big picture, it's a major problem for this team is being able to just go out there and impose your will and go, we need a yard, we're going to go and get that yard. And so, settled for 3. Hey, at least they got the points.
Yep. So, yeah, and one thing with that too is we harped on Mike McDaniel, especially last year, for not taking points when he needed to take points. I would say he's been very good this year in the decision-making to know when to take points and know when to go for it in early parts of the game. So I give him applause for that, because that is one of the biggest adjustments he made from last year, and he learned from it. So the Dolphins go up 9-3, but the Jets go 6 plays, 70 yards. The big play on this drive after a false start penalty to make it 3rd and 14, Aaron Rodgers found Tyler Conklin for 10. On 4th and 4, Garrett Wilson, let's just call it what it was. He absolutely dusted Jalen Ramsey off the line for a 35-yard completion on 4th and 4. And on the very next play, after a Chop Robinson injury, he did come back into the game. The third string running back for the Jets, Davis, goes left tackle for 17 yards for a touchdown. And that was the exact play that we brought up about Javon Holland. Just waltzed right into the end zone, and the Jets take a 10-9 lead. Jalen Ramsey has been phenomenal all season, Josh, but today it looks like he just didn't have it against Garrett Wilson.
No, he was slow and looked like he was getting cooked all game long. Now, how much of that is because he's feeling like he needs to compensate for Kader Kohou, who's playing near him? I don't know, but yeah, he was slow and he just got beat all day long by Garrett Wilson. Yeah. It was not terribly encouraging with Nico Collins looming next week, but this was certainly a disappointing showing from Ramsey. And again, like you suggested, he didn't get a lot of help elsewhere. And then particularly underneath this Miami Dolphins, I think it's possible the Miami Dolphins might have the worst linebacker core in the entire NFL right now.
Oh, another topic.
Something just to put in your pipe and smoke for a little while and contemplate as we go forward here.
Absolutely. The Dolphins do answer again. 12-play, 65-yard drive. They had to settle for another field goal. On this drive, they did have it 3rd and 1. Devon Achane got stopped at the Jets' 16-yard line. On 4th and 2, Tua found Jalen Waddle over the middle for 5 yards and a first down. And then the drive just completely fell apart. Patrick Paul, illegal formation penalty, made it 2nd and 15. Tua found Jalen Waddle for 11, made it 3rd and 4, and then an incomplete pass to Jalen Wright as the play was just completely broken. They had to settle for a chip shot, 24-yard field goal from Jason Sanders, and the Dolphins go back up 12-10 on the drive. On this drive as well, Tua and Tyreek connection hooked up for a 10-yard completion and a nice 21-yard completion to Tyreek Hill. So that connection is starting to find its groove, obviously late in the season, but a big day today from Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, he was really starting. We said it early on. I think I was watching the game with my brother, and I think it must have been early on in the game. Might have been around this time that we're like, this looks like it could be the big blow-up Tyreek Hill game. Because that connection was humming, the connection was there. The Jets were giving the Dolphins that space in the middle of the field to hit those crossing routes that they've been unable to take advantage of for much of the season. And so it was humming and it was clicking and it was good. That was where you had the sense of what might be to come later on in the day.
Absolutely. The Jets got their own field goal back, 11-play, 58-yard drive, 4 minutes, 7 seconds off the clock. The drive stalled out at the Dolphins' 12-yard line after a false start penalty from Morgan Moses, and Anders Carlson makes a 30-yard field goal just about to end the half, 49 seconds left. But with Dolphins with no timeouts left, the drive starts at the 30-yard line. Tua goes to Jalen Waddle for a 10-yard completion. Tua then found Tyreek Hill for 6 yards. He got out of bounds to stop the clock with 19 seconds left. From the 46-yard line, Tua finds Jalen Waddle over the middle for a 15-yard completion. After a spike, Jason Sanders' 57-yard field goal is good. And after a Jet kneel down, the Dolphins go into the half up 15-13. A very solid drive from Tua with very little time left on the clock to be able to get those points. And those points mattered late in the game, Josh.
They sure did. We'll talk about, keep it in the first half right now, but there were stretches of this game where he was able to find exactly what he was looking for. And he was truly carved the Jets up at moments, particularly on that final drive of the first half, which was I mean, textbook. It was a textbook drive from Tua and the Miami Dolphins offense for what you want to do to go down and get some points right before the end of the half. If they're going to leave you a little bit of time left, the Dolphins went down there and they did exactly what they needed to do. And yeah, I thought that was a great example of Tua doing the things that he is really good at. His anticipation, his timing, his accuracy, it combined on that drive, and it allowed the Dolphins to get down there and get what turned out to be a very important 3 points right before the half.
Now, just remember this drive when we go later on into the game, towards the end of the game. Just remember this one. So we hit halftime. I want to give a big shout out to everybody listening over at finheaven.com, the largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet. Also, everyone listening and watching over at the Facebook group. I am a Miami Dolphins fan run by the great Carlos Hernandez. If you're on Facebook, please be sure to check them out. I don't have the Mellows that Mike has, our wonderful sponsor, Mellow. Mike still needs to send me a couple cans because I really want to try. I want to try that stuff.
I want to try the strawberry mango Mellow THC seltzer.
Ooh, have you tried one?
No, I haven't, but I really want to. I want to gently lift my spirits and ground my senses.
Absolutely. So the seltzer that has taken America by storm, Mellow THC seltzer, comes in wild berry, grapefruit, strawberry mango, and half the lemonade and iced tea. A mix of madness, genius, and a pinch of chaos to bring you the best sips in the universe. With 5 milligrams of THC in the drink, Mellow is revolutionizing the way you unwind. Each sip is designed to gently lift your spirits and ground your senses. Josh, you beat me to it. Go to mellowseltzer.com for information on how and where to purchase. All right, we're going to get into the second half of this football game. The Jets get the ball, 7 plays, 70 yards, and I felt like everybody was wide open on this possession. The big play was Aaron Rodgers to Garrett Wilson to the Miami 26-yard line for 42 yards to the and then it was 6 yards to Davante Adams. On 4th and 2, Aaron Rodgers found, again, Davis, the third-string running back, for a 15-yard completion. 1st and goal from the 3, Aaron Rodgers to Davante Adams with the much-maligned Kader Kohou in coverage on that play. And the Jets go up 20-15. And I thought the rails were about to fall off as the Dolphins – after a 15-yard strike to Jalen Waddle, the drive completely stalled out. They had to punt it away. That's where I started getting nervous, Josh. I don't know about you, but I got nervous when the Jets went up 20-15 and the Dolphins could not answer as they did all in the first half.
Yeah, I said it at the moment. I said basically the Dolphins defense is performing so poorly today that they're basically leaving the Dolphins no room for error, because if the Dolphins offense can't execute, then the defense doesn't look like at this point that they're going to be able to stop them and allow the Dolphins offense to stay in the game. And that was kind of what happened at this point. It was just, it was one of those things. It was so same old Dolphins for Aaron Rodgers to come into this game after this offense has looked so out of sorts and so broken all season long. I've watched a lot of the Jets this season and they've just been terrible. And for them to come into this game and missing Breece Hall, who is widely considered to be one of the best running backs in the league, and for them to come in and just basically get whatever they want from the Miami Dolphins defensively, and to have that Rodgers to Adams connection firing at all cylinders, it was just like, I was just sitting there going like, this is so same old Dolphins that they're gonna sit here. And I had a post earlier this week on Blue Sky, where you can follow me, by the way, at Amplified to Rock on Blue Sky. I said even a broken clock is right twice a day, and when it plays the Dolphins. And that is exactly what was going on here, as the New York Jets, who have looked like they just at times couldn't string a sentence together, were just basically getting whatever they wanted from the Dolphins defense.
Yeah, and they did on the very next drive, up 20-15, 14 plays, 58 yards, took 7 minutes and 49 seconds of play clock off on 3rd and 8 on this drive. a short pass to Davis for a 10-yard completion and a first down to the 32. Again, another third down. Aaron Rodgers found Garrett Wilson for 8 yards and a first down. The Dolphins once again forcing the Jets on a third down. Aaron Rodgers finally sacked. He made a lot of moves. He had an opportunity to make a play, but Jordan Brooks finally got him to the ground. They had to settle for a 40-yard field goal attempt, and the Jets went up 23-15. And then, like you said, the same old Dolphins in big moment. Tua incomplete on first down. Tua incomplete on second down. Tua incomplete on third down. Dolphins had a punt. Jake Bailey, 56 yards. Thank God you knew how to punt in that situation because it flipped the field and the Dolphins were able to force the Jets 3 and out as Aaron Rodgers was sacked on 3rd and 2 by Zach Sealer to force the punt. And with 13:23 to go in the fourth quarter, the Dolphins get to a 9-play, 60-yard drive, 4 minutes, 19 seconds off the clock. Started with Tua Tagovailoa's 4th straight incomplete pass, and then his 5th straight incomplete pass. And then on 3rd and 10, he found Tyreek Hill for 18 yards and a first down. And that is where, in my opinion, Tua kind of took the team on his back. After those incompletions, 5 straight, which we normally do not see from him. On 1st and 10, he finds Jeff Wilson for 7. Jeff Wilson ran for 4 yards and a first down. Tua then goes deep down the field to Malik Washington, and DJ Reed called for another defensive pass interference to give the ball to the Dolphins at the Jet 8-yard line. And on the first play, Davante goes for a 3-yard loss. And 2nd and goal from the 11, Tua found Jalen Waddle for 10 yards to the 1. 3rd and goal from the 1. 1 stinking yard. Davante once again hit in the backfield for a 3-yard loss. On 4th and goal from the 4, Tua did find Tyreek Hill for a 4-yard touchdown and then found Jalen Waddle for the 2-point conversion to make this a tie game at 23. Josh, your thoughts on the big drive from Tua? And obviously that penalty played a big factor for the Dolphins to get down the field.
Yes, I mean, you take advantage of that all day. You're happy to have it. But I mean, the bigger thing is on that drive is that Tua dropped it in, and Tua just decided, okay, this is it. I'm going. He's been derided a lot of times, quite often, for failing to do that sort of thing. And that's what he did today. And he did it today. He strapped, and granted, you can take it for what it is. He did it against the Jets, and a Jets team that was very beat up defensively. But after having looked pretty bad for a good chunk of the third quarter and the first part of the fourth quarter, for him to just drop it in and turn it on and say, okay, enough of this. Now let's go win this game. It's good to see. It's one of those things where you can see that when Tua is at his best, he is a quarterback that you can win with. He is a quarterback that you can win with. And we've seen that with him. But, unfortunately, there are, some of his shortcomings means that in order to win with him, you still need to have a lot around him in order to do it. And right now, maybe the Dolphins don't have that. But today, they had enough. And, that turned on, and particularly on that big drive in the fourth quarter.
Yes. After the Dolphins touchdown to tie the game, the Jets, they were forced to go 3 and out. The Dolphins got the ball back. They had a 5-play drive. They got it to the Jet 49-yard line, and then a offensive holding call on Robert Jones after a 3-yard completion to Davante forced it to be 2nd and 17, and then the drive stalled out, forced the punt, and the Jets go 11 plays, 63 yards, 3 minutes and 33 seconds. Now remember that number, 3 minutes and 33 seconds. The Jets did convert a 3rd and 1 with a direct snap to Braelon Allen from their 37. On the very next play, Davante Adams with a reception for 16 yards got us to the 2-minute warning. 1st and 10 from the Dolphins' 45-yard line, 18 yards to Alan Lazard to the 27. Davis then lost 5 yards on his run, which was a huge play by Benito Jones, who blew that play up. On 2nd and 15, Aaron Rodgers then sacked by Zach Sealer to make it 3rd and 21, but the play of the game with 1:02 left, Aaron Rodgers to Davante Adams, who was pushed out of bounds by Kendall Fuller to stop the clock with no timeouts left for the Miami Dolphins. And a 42-yard field goal is good by Anders Carlson. No timeouts, Josh, and 44 seconds, because on the kick return, do you think Malik Washington redeemed himself from the game in Green Bay?
I mean, I don't know to say that he redeemed himself necessarily. Sure. I'll
in a
say,
big moment.
Yeah.
In the big moment.
I mean, this was
right?
a big spot. This was a big spot, and he did a great job. He certainly showed why he is an upgrade over Braxton Berrios returning kicks. And so this was a big return for Malik Washington, and it was what the Dolphins needed to kickstart this drive. But I mean, I can't believe how badly the Jets botched that situation beforehand. Yes. You have to talk about this, because all the Jets need to do is he throws that pass to Davante Adams. I mean, this is the thing. It's 2 veterans in that spot making the mistake. It's not just that Rodgers decided to throw that ball to Adams there on the sideline. It's that Adams then decided to take it and run it out of bounds instead of falling down inbounds. Because at that point, if he falls down inbounds, they run it down and kick the field goal with like 12 seconds left for the Dolphins?
Oh, yeah.
It was such a humongous error. But that being said, in a game where largely I think as clearly this was a matchup between 2 teams that are not the best in the NFL, and in a game where was largely fairly clean from the perspective of mistakes in terms of turnovers and things like that. It was largely a fairly clean game. For the Jets to commit that mistake right there, it completely opened the door for the Dolphins to take advantage and to show that they are a team that can take advantage of a big spot. Then they got the kickoff rather than ensuring that the kick could not be returned, because that's where the new kickoff rules are screwing with teams' heads a little bit. They decided, let's kick it off and we can stop them instead of giving them the ball at the 30. But instead, Washington has it, takes it, gets that great return, and sets the Dolphins up to get into field goal range. And it didn't take them terribly long to do it, Tom.
No, it didn't. On that possession as well, Davante Adams caught it at the sideline. Kendall Fuller did a good job, I think, holding him upright, because a part of me thinks that Davante Adams was trying to fall to the ground, but because of the pass being in the air the way that it was, and he had to catch it up near his face mask, didn't allow him to really make that. And Kendall Fuller being there did the wise thing and just kept him up and forced him out of bounds. But in that situation, again, if you're Aaron Rodgers, you're going to be a Hall of Fame football player, why aren't you dumping it off to somebody in the middle of the football field? You juice enough clock there, the game is over. So thank you for the boneheaded play. I think his age is starting to show there, or that ayahuasca or whatever the hell he eats messed with his head there. I didn't understand, but I appreciate it, because it allowed the big return for Malik Washington, because they wanted to run clock, right? They wanted to let the Dolphins return it and run some clock. What they didn't expect is Malik Washington, like you said, is not Braxton Berrios. And Anders Carlson made a business decision. And boy, is he going to be on Angry Runs, probably, if you watch NFL Network. He'll be on the Angry Runs in the morning. The Dolphins started with an incomplete pass to Malik Washington, 2nd and 10. Tua found Tyreek Hill for 14 yards and a first down. Tua threw incomplete to Jalen Waddle, but then found Jalen Waddle for 6 yards over the middle of the field. They get up, hurry up, and then Tua threw a ball to Tyreek Hill just out of his reach, but I'm thankful it went incomplete, because I think if he caught it, he was going to get tackled. I don't know if there was going to be enough time to set the ball and spike it. So after the incompletion, Jason Sanders' 52-yard field goal is good, and the Dolphins tied it up 26-26. You can't say enough about Jason Sanders, as much maligned as he has been a few years ago. When it comes to a clutch kick, he's been money, very, very money over the last few years, Josh.
Oh yeah, he's mostly been nails. I mean, that was why it was that funny thing. Like, I mean, he's coming off of one of the special teams player of the month award for November or something like that. He has been worth the money that the Dolphins have paid him. He's been reliable largely, aside from that one blip of a season that he had. He's been exactly who the Dolphins paid for. And so I think you got to be happy with that. And the fact that, again, he came out in a big spot here, banging through a couple of 50-yarders in this game. That's no joke. And that's why you pay him the money that you pay him. And for him to come through and hit those kicks, and give the Dolphins what they needed to force overtime. Let's just say he maybe he doesn't need a wheelbarrow like Dan Campbell, but he's when he stands on the scale, you notice that extra weight. You know what I mean? Yeah,
he's been nails. And a part of me was always thinking, maybe they're going to move on from him in the offseason. Maybe he's coming down on his last couple of years of his last year of his contract. There's a chance they might go in another direction. No. They're not going to do that. They're probably, honestly, they may end up just extending him an extra couple of years, to kind of maneuver the cap a little bit for him. I think he's on the books for like $4 million-ish next year. So they can reduce his cap charge, kick it down the road a little bit, giving him an extension. He deserves it. Honestly, he really does. I know he missed an extra point today, but at first glance, it looked like it was just not a great snap, and it took a minute for the hold, and it just pushed it because he's been money on every extra point this year, so you can't fault the guy unless he completely shanked it, but it didn't look that was going to be the case. The Dolphins did win the toss, and they got the ball to start overtime, and Tua called game. After an incomplete pass on first down, finds the name we haven't said all day here, Josh, finds Jonnu Smith for 20 yards to midfield and a first down, and then found him on a screen pass for 14 yards, already getting into field goal range after a 4-yard run from Achane, a completion of Tyreek Hill to the Jet 23 for a first down. Found on 1st and 10 from the 23, found Devon Achane for 10, and then Devon Achane for 3 yards, make it 2nd and 7, and on 2nd and 7, Tua Tagovailoa stepped back, had plenty of time in the pocket to survey what was going on, and found Jonnu Smith streaking over the middle of the end zone and completed for a touchdown. And the Miami Dolphins walk it off against the stinking, lowly, shitty New York Jets, 32-26. Your thoughts on Tua on the final drive?
Oh, I mean, he was, again, just as he was at that drive at the end of the first half, the drive at the end of regulation. It was here, and it was surgical, the precision passing. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. It was everything that you want to see from your quarterback. It was just fantastic. And it got the Dolphins exactly where they needed to win the game. And it was beautiful. And listen, if there's one thing as a fan of the Miami Dolphins, that no matter what the context is surrounding it, I will always love it when the Dolphins beat the Jets. And they
absolutely.
In overtime, in walk-off fashion. A walk-off win is always exciting. A little extra juice there. It was. Listen, would I have preferred that the Dolphins blew them out 42-0? Yes, obviously, of course. But at the end of the day, that wasn't the game that we got. But they did what they needed to do, and they got the win over the Jets. And on top of everything else, it was a scoregami. A scoregami. The first time in the history of the NFL that a game ended with a score of 32-26. And it was the Dolphins beating the Jets. It's beautiful.
Scoregami. I love it. All right, let's get into the team stats before we go into the game balls. The Dolphins had 28 first downs to the Jets 23. Third down efficiency, Jets 4 for 12. This is I think the low point for the Dolphins on the season. They were 1 for 9 on third downs. Both teams were 2 for 2 on fourth down. The Jets ran 63 plays for 402 total yards on 10 drives, averaged 6.4 yards per play. Again, disastrous performance by the Dolphins defense in this game, but they got the W, most important thing. 66 plays by the Dolphins for 375, 10 total drives at 5.7 yards per play. Aaron Rodgers in this game, 27 of 39 for 339 yards. His first 300-yard game in, I think, 2 seasons total of games. So, again, terrible performance. He was sacked 3 times for a total of 20 yards. Tua Tagovailoa, 33 of 47 for 331 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, and he was not sacked in this game. Rushing totals, again, abysmal effort from the Dolphins, 19 carries for 44 yards at 2.3 yards per carry. The Jets were 21 for 83, averaging 4 yards a carry. Where football games are won and lost is in the red zone, Josh. The Dolphins 3 for 4. The Jets made 5 trips to the red zone and only cashed in on 2 of those attempts. Penalties, both teams pretty sloppy today. The Jets 10 for 83, Dolphins 8 for 49. Neither team turned the ball over in time of possession, 32-53 for the Miami Dolphins and 31-02 for the Jets. Josh, this is part of the show. We give out game balls. Who gets your game ball in the win over the Jets today?
Oh, well, I'm going to give my game ball to Jason Sanders because he nailed a couple of 50-yard field goals, and it turned out to be huge. Even though he missed that extra point early on, he bounced back. His team picked him up, and again, with 2 big field goals on the end of each half, it was a big performance today from Jason Sanders. So I'm going to give him my game ball.
That is a great decision. Now, while I can give it to the quarterback, I'm going to give it to a guy who has been much maligned throughout the season. Hasn't been the same guy, but today he gets off the schneid. 10 receptions, 115 yards. It's going to Tyreek Hill, who caught that clutch touchdown in the fourth quarter to help the Dolphins tie the football game. Obviously, without Tyreek Hill, Tua Tagovailoa, again, 104.1 rating in this game. His QBR for this game per ESPN, 80.4 was the QBR in this game. That's very good football. And speaking of the quarterback, and then I'll give it over to you, Josh, I do have to say this. I said at the top of the show, we asked the guy to take the team and carry them on his back. This game, much like others before, the Arizona game, the Buffalo Bills game, and this game in particular off the top of my head, are moments where Tua did everything he could to drag his team to victory, especially when the defense was poor. 2 times the defense let him down. And today, Tua Tagovailoa did not let his defense ruin the effort. He had the drive before the half. He had the drive with no timeouts in the fourth quarter, and he had the drive in overtime where he put the nail in the coffin on the Jets season to officially eliminate them from any postseason. They weren't going to get in regardless, but now they're officially eliminated. Tua Tagovailoa, as much as he is loved or hated from this fan base, over the last month of games, Tua has thrown 11 touchdown passes and 0 interceptions. Do with that information as you will. Today was clutch. Big moments. He shined. Huge game for Tua, and the Dolphins keep their season alive. Josh, any final thoughts you want to provide?
On the game? No, I'll say, look, I mean, in response to your stats about Tua, it's like I said, he is a fine quarterback. Today, again, he was good. It was a good performance from the quarterback. He wasn't great today, but he was good. He was a very solid performance. And like you suggested, late in the game, he came up big when the Dolphins needed him to at the end of either half. And that's what you want to see from your quarterback. This was not a game that was about Tua for me anyway. Tua had a good game today. And he did manage to lift the Dolphins to victory in a game that the defense was really trying to lose. But for me, when I walk away from this game, the overwhelming thing, and I think this is maybe something that you wanted to talk a little bit about, is where this leaves the Dolphins now after this game, having defeated the Jets with 4 games remaining, sitting at 6-7, knowing that there's a decent chance that if they finish the season at 10-7, they're going to get into the playoffs. There's a decent chance. They know that they have to win out. They have to win the rest of the way. But as I come out of this game, the thing that I wonder is this team capable of winning the rest of its games? They got a big road test next week to Houston, which is a game in a controlled environment inside, against a quarterback who has, I think, regressed this year. CJ Stroud has not been as good as his rookie season suggested that he might be if he were to take the next step this year. But that is a team with weapons. And while that team's offensive line has struggled, it's a team with weapons. And Miami's going to have a hard time going in there to win. And based off of the performance that I saw from the Dolphins defense today, if that defense is going to put in that performance 4 more times this season, there is no chance in hell that the Miami Dolphins are going to be a playoff team this year. Okay? I'm saying it right now. If that defense is going to play like that the rest of the way, forget it. And even if they do, and I mean, this is kind of where I sit right now, because even if the Dolphins do manage to do enough to win those 4 games and they go into the playoffs, their reward is traveling to Kansas City or Buffalo the first week of the playoffs. And then they're on the road in cold weather, in a situation that they have never had any success in. So I have a hard time believing what it's going to be. So, at the end of the day, the Dolphins, there were 2 teams on the field today, neither of which was terribly good overall. At the end of the day, the Dolphins were the better of the 2 teams on the field today. But what is that saying when they're up against a lousy Jets team? A lousy Jets team that they almost let beat them, right? So as I sit here, I look at the Miami Dolphins and I go, this game was a narrative enforcer for me. If you're somebody that believes that the Dolphins are going to have what it takes to make it into the playoffs, this game enforced that narrative for you because they went out and they beat the Jets, right? But if you're somebody that believes that this team doesn't have enough in the tank, that doesn't have enough on the roster, doesn't have the horses, doesn't have the capacity, doesn't have the toughness to go out there and win these last 4 games and then perhaps go on the road to win a playoff game, if that's what you believe, this game enforced that as well. So to me, there was very little that was going to happen in this game today that was going to change my mind about this team and where it's headed and what its trajectory is right now. And I feel the same way having watched it. I'm glad they got the win. That's good because it means that there's another meaningful game next week. And it's a lot more fun to watch a game that's meaningful than a game that isn't meaningful. But at the end of the day, I don't have a strong belief in this team and what it has right now. That it's going to be enough to do anything significant this season.
Yeah, to piggyback off what you said, I'm with you in that regards. It is the season of perpetual hope, right? This is always what the Miami Dolphins do to us fans, is they just kind of string us along a little bit more, just to get that knife ready to go, whether it's week 17 or 18. It's going to be ready to go. But again, I said it last week in the post-game show, and I'll say it again tonight. 1 game at a time. You got the win today. Go to Houston. Find a way to win there. Get some help along the way. And if you are maybe a game behind the last playoff spot going into your final home game against the banged up 49ers, if you can win that game, the chips will fall where they may, because the last 2 games of the season, you're going to be playing in Cleveland, where it's probably going to be a whopping 15 degrees and probably snowing, and then you're going to be playing at MetLife Stadium. You want to kill narratives, win the next 4 games. If you don't, same old Dolphins. They just drag us along, give us the hope, and they stab us when it matters the most. So, I'm very happy with the win. And like you said, Josh, nothing makes me happier than when they beat the Jets. I don't care if both teams were terrible. Both teams could have had 0 wins going into this game. I want them to beat the Jets twice every season because for much of my youth, my high school years, the Jets always beat the Dolphins. The tide has turned. The Miami Dolphins now have an ownership stake with the New York Jets because this is now 9 consecutive years the Jets have not won in South Florida. And the Dolphins only have that one loss where they kicked Teddy Bridgewater out of the game for a fake concussion the week after Tua got his concussion. So it is great to see a win. They just got to keep doing it. And now hope that Kansas City gets the job done. That brings the Chargers maybe a little bit closer as well. But there's a lot of work to do, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I have, other than the ground game not working because Austin Jackson, since he's left, the Dolphins have not eclipsed 100 yards on the ground. Think of the importance. We, as fans, we were running off Austin Jackson after his first couple seasons. And look how important this man is to the offensive line. Before we go, I do have to get your thoughts on Patrick Paul today. He played big minutes for the Dolphins. I think Armstead maybe only played a grand total of 10 to 12 snaps. We'll get the snap totals tomorrow. What were your thoughts on rookie Patrick Paul playing in a big spot against the Jets?
Yeah, I thought he was fine. I thought he did a good job. I think there were a couple of blocks, in some of the more athletic plays where they needed to get outside and we had to get off the line and out in front of him. That there were a couple of plays where he missed spots and missed guys down the field. But largely, I thought it was a decent little game for Patrick Paul. I mean, McDaniel himself said that he didn't have to do a whole lot to change up how he was calling the game on account of Patrick Paul being in there. I think if you want to talk about real positives, the fact that he got to be out there in this game, in a tough game that the Dolphins had to fight and claw to come back to win, I think that's a really good experience for Patrick Paul.
Absolutely.
And so I mean, at this point, him being out there is to me, and getting reps on the field is a good thing. I mean, and it sounds like there is a chance that it seems to me, and nobody's really being terribly clear about it regarding Terron Armstead, but it seems like this injury that he's dealing with right now is one that probably, like, he needs to get surgery to fix, and he's just been trying to gut it out and tough it out because we know that that's something that he's done. And the fact that he had to pull himself out of the game because the pain was just too much for him to deal with, the same injury, that doesn't bode well for me. So it suggests to me that we maybe aren't going to see Terron Armstead anymore, and we might just be seeing Patrick Paul the rest of the way. And quite frankly, for me, that's a great thing because you need Patrick Paul to get that experience. You need him to, like, that is a huge component to, if this Dolphins team is going to take a step forward next year and the year after that, and our understanding is that the Dolphins are trying to, in terms of how things have moved, the grand scheme of things, next year is the year that the Dolphins are pushing all their chips to the middle of the table to try to make a big push. And part of the long-term plan for this team is going to be Patrick Paul being a key component at a low salary on the Dolphins offensive line. So the more he can play and the more experience he can get, I mean, to me at this point, unless he's causing somebody to get hurt, there's only good that can come of him playing.
Absolutely. I was around the trade deadline, I was saying trade Terron Armstead because he's healthy and just give Patrick Paul more reps at that point. Obviously, Armstead's had a really good season. It's unfortunate now that the injury bug is now catching up to him, and then, you can't ask much more out of Armstead. I mean, his body has been broken for many years, and I thought he did a good job managing himself this year. But if this is the end of his tenure with the Dolphins, I wish he was healthier, but he was fantastic. For when he was on the field, he was great. But now the guy he's been teaching, he's up. Patrick Paul's the guy. So let's see what he can bring to the table. All right, that will do it for the post-game wrap-up show. I want to thank everybody for listening and watching. Be sure to go to dolphinstalk.com every single day for all the latest Miami Dolphins news and information. You could follow me on Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever you want to, wherever you go on social media, at Dolphins Talk Tom. You could follow Josh at Amplified to Rock on Blue Sky. And we're going to have shows for the rest of the week. Our head honcho, the El Capitan, will be back with us. I'm sure he'll be having a show when he gets back in town after his lovely trip to South Florida. I'm a little jealous. He sent some pictures over from the Hard Rock and from both the hotel as well as the game. I was a little jealous that I wasn't there, because I'm normally his traveling buddy and getting stopped by TSA randomly all the time.
Do we have any confirmation about which rental car company he went with?
I don't think it was Sixt.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
Sixt sucks, by the way. They suck. If you're going anywhere in the continental United States, overseas, there are many great companies out there. Sixt isn't one of them. They suck. You're rather off rent a bus, go and get an Uber, do something other than renting from Sixt. They suck. Period.
There we go.
They suck. So thank you for bringing that up, because I forgot to mention how much they suck. Don't rent a car from Sixt. Go anywhere else. Go to the worst. Actually, they are the worst. Go to the second worst rental company that you could find and rent from them. Don't give your money to those clowns. Please don't.
Hey, and if you haven't done so, like the video right now. There's a bunch of you watching on YouTube.
Smash
that thumbs up button real quick. Just smash that thumbs up button before you leave, before you go to the next thing that you're going to do, before you start smashing your fantasy football content, whatever it is. Just smash that thumbs up button real quick. Let's get a bunch of likes on this video so that we can share it. We appreciate it. Also, if you haven't signed up for Dolphins Talk Extra, patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. Sign up as little as $3 a month. Lots of good stuff going on over there, including the Discord, which was lit during the game today. Yeah, check it out. Patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. For as little as $3 a month, you can come and get extra bonus Dolphins content, which is what,
Absolutely.
Who doesn't want more Dolphins content?
All right. Now I have to end the show the proper way. Thank you all for listening. And just remember, folks, especially around the holidays when you're going into the Target parking lots and people are pulling, doing the drive-through into the parking spot that you want to go to, just remember, we must put an end to highway profanity. Fins up.
Go Dolphins.